Nestled in the heart of historic downtown Wilkesboro, the 1915 offers a wedding experience like no other. Once a federal courthouse and post office, the 1915 combines rich history with timeless charm. From intimate gatherings to full-day rentals, we provide the perfect backdrop for your most cherished moments. With indoor and outdoor options, bridal and groom suites, every detail is crafted just for you. Make your wedding unforgettable at the 1915, Wilkesboro's historic wedding venue, where your story begins.
Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning experienced family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of life in Wilkes.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
So we've got the Ward family with us. So we've got Daniel and Drew, father and son. So, Daniel, why don't you start by telling us who you are and what you're doing here?
Well, just, longtime Wilkes resident that now I live at the coast.
Right.
And my wife and I, Charlene and I, are on the eastern seaboard, but we are Wilkes County natives, and somehow I've had a long attachment to baseball,
Right.
and that has managed to get us tied back into being back here more. Now our families are still here, as far as both moms,
Right.
still in the area, and most of Charlene's family, and so we burned the road up a lot already.
Sure.
But,
Well, now that's a nice highlight, right? So let's go back further. Tell me about your people. I know this is the people that you made, but the people that made you. What'd your family do in Wilkes?
Well, my dad's from the eastern part of the county.
Okay.
And he was a baby of 8. Mm-hmm. So Cheryl Ward was the youngest of a big family, mm-hmm. and but we moved to the outskirts of Moravian Falls. We moved between Wilkesboro and Moravian Falls there in the Cub Creek community when I was about 2 years old, mm-hmm. and so that's grew up right near Cub Creek Church.
Okay,
just right across from there. And I was one of 5, so I had 3 brothers and a sister. Tried to be the baby.
Right.
I was number 4, and the younger brother came along 6 years later and
messed things up.
Took that from me, and so.
So you were near Moravian Falls before Moravian Falls has become what it is now, right?
Yeah.
Because people just come from all over, to visit Moravian Falls and live there now.
Yeah, we were, hey, we had Bob's Fish Lake, and we had we could still go swimming in a murky body of water there, but we but community, and things, and scouts, and ball, and playing in the backyard. But we, my parents encouraged us all to be who we were, and that was we were different. And
right.
My siblings and I, we weren't all molded in the same way, and that was a good thing. But
sure.
Big part of the church and big part of the community. And my dad was a scoutmaster and was involved with supportive of sports and Little League and things. Didn't coach, didn't, he wanted to, but he made sure the equipment was there and made sure, people got from one place to the other.
So is that what planted that seed in you, that you had that exposure and it gave you, was that exciting for you at that time, or did that come later?
I loved the game, and I would say it was kind of interesting that I look back on it and an enjoyment for it. I may have, my dad, a little bit aware of it, but not as far as having a love for it. He may have followed me into it a little, even as a kid. I mean, in a way, he was actually working with with Jack Boston back then. He was assistant scoutmaster, and Jack's son Paul was playing Little League baseball on the Pirates, and he was a little older. He was actually a friend of one of my brothers, Daryl, 2 years older than I am, and somehow I ended up at a baseball practice with Paul before I had tried out for a team or anything, and Ed Brewer and Edgar Wilcox were the coaches on that team, I remember, and I evidently could play a little bit. I don't know. I was 8 years old, and tryouts not long after that, and I didn't know what sandbagging was as a kid, but I remember Coach Brewer saying, "Don't try too hard," at that practice. But as it turned out, I was picked by the Pirates, and the.
So you did try hard.
It was on. I did try hard. and you get a ball uniform and a chance to go to the old Optimus Park and there in North Wilkesboro and play the game. And
it was on then.
Yeah.
How old were you then?
8. And
so okay, this is 8.
All
right.
And a late June birthday, so officially I was a 9-year-old. The way the cutoff worked, but.
Nice. So that's how it got planted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you went on through school and high school, were you involved with ball then?
Yeah. Well, a lot of rec ball. A lot of rec ball. A lot of those years. Then it's broken up differently now, but it was that age through 12 years old. You had a pretty good span, so to be competing with those guys. And then the leagues expanded after that, but there weren't many of us at that 8 and 9-year-old level playing through the 8 to 12-year-old. There were a few, but then the leagues expanded, and then coming on up, and then over at the VFW fields, there was a couple of fields there, and you had 13 and 14 and 15, and then Babe Ruth ball. Whitby was a big part of that. He was really involved in expanding the Babe Ruth leagues into that league. There wasn't an American Legion team in the area, but our Babe Ruth that traveled was a strong league in that 16 to 18-year-old league, and so even playing a separate 16-year-old league, and then 16 to 18s, you got a chance to play on 2 teams there at that time, and.
So what you're describing is a time period that some of the iconic programs for baseball was taking place, right? You talked about the Babe Ruth. So you're talking about things that maybe not everyone can experience that exact thing now. Something else has taken that place, though, right? So it really is that early history, right?
Well, it was a time that really local rec ball was really strong, and I think it's something that Drew and I talk about. I mean, we'd love to see more of that even strengthened again, because it makes a difference, and even the game in the backyard. I mean, I think about the times. His grandpa, well, he was tight. He was close to him, and he was with all of his kids and grandkids, and my mom keeping things together. My dad was a pipe fitter. I mean, he threw pipe around for 50 years.
He's a tough guy.
He was a tough guy, but he was also he could come in from that long day, and I could talk him into throwing some ball or hitting balls in the backyard until it was dark, or until. But he also, we didn't have the yard of the year. We didn't have a garden club yard. Right. We had a yard that was played in.
Right.
And yet when people came around, you knew you could go out there and you could play in that yard. And I don't know too many people that ended up with a pitching mound built in the corner of their yard, and an old piece of I guess it was monkey bars. I don't know, whatever, that got pulled apart, and a piece of wire put on the back of it for a backstop that wasn't over 5 or 6 feet high, but it would stop a ball if somebody was catching and you were getting a chance to try to hone your craft, for lack of a better way
Sure.
of saying it, because I love to throw toward a mitt, you know.
So you were not only playing on the field, you were home, you were practicing and playing there, right?
Yes, well,
Having a good time.
that's the love for the game,
Right.
and passing that on. You know, tried to make sure that Drew and his buddies had a chance to do the same kind of thing, and that's an old school, I guess, an old school part of what people that you know enjoy, and I think he's been able to do even with a high school program.
Right.
So,
Well, let's roll over into that a minute. I mean, there's so much going on. So as you do get married eventually, right? And then you have Drew. Your wife has Drew, right? So Drew's in the family. So Drew, why don't you talk about what your earliest memories are with your dad and baseball, and when do you remember it becoming something that you thought consciously, I really like this?
Yeah, you know, he mentions the backyard a lot. You know, my first instruction, I think, under Coach Ward here, came in the backyard with a small wiffle ball bat and a wiffle ball, and it had nothing to do with mechanics, and it had nothing to do with anything other than, you know, we're going to make contact and we're going to hit the baseball, or we're going to hit the wiffle ball, or whatever it is. And of course, not long into my life, he's involved in high school baseball, and I've got a vivid memory of him standing for a national anthem at a baseball game. I think at North Wilkes High School. I couldn't tell you what uniform you were wearing, but that's something that sticks out. Way back, you know, that was probably 4 or 5. So, and then he's coaching. He's, you know, his years at Beaver Creek up in Ashe County were very formative for me, getting to be around a great program and getting to be around the people that were, I definitely won't say gods, but heroes on the diamond. Were his high school players. You know?
How old were you when you were out with your dad and you realized that he was the coach, and you realized that these people were listening to him and taking his direction? When did you realize how strong he was in that position?
Right. Probably right around that time. So we'll go, 6 to 8 in that range. And part of that, he did a tremendous job. And I've told you this, but did a tremendous job of being coach on the ball field and dad at home. And so
breaking it up.
Okay. And, you know, if I ever had questions, or if I ever had concerns, I could go to him as coach. But when we were at the house, you know, he was dad. And then when we were on the ball field, he was Coach Ward. And so that was something that I've tried to emulate a lot. But that came from way back as well, you know, being around his practices some, but also knowing that there was a time when I needed to hang out in the stands and let him get his work done and things of that nature. So
it sounds like you're fortunate that you had that line and you had both a dad and a coach.
Absolutely.
So that was a good thing. Yeah. That doesn't happen with all coaches and sons.
No, it doesn't. And it doesn't happen with all parents. You know, one of the things that I struggle most with as a high school coach is my ability now, you know, I've been in it, 14 years as a varsity coach now, my ability to be tough on those players and to make sure that they understand these are the expectations and this is how we're going to do things. Now it seems that the parents have a harder time of separating that sometimes. And so we have to be cognizant of that and aware of, hey, we love your kid. When they're out here and they're in between the lines, I want the absolute best for them. But I need you to be the parent. I need you to be the dad that he was to me off the field, you know.
So why do you think that is? I mean, what is it that makes it to where that's hard to do? Maybe it was hard to do even when you were young, but your family did it, right?
Well, I think part of it, and it might be easier for me to say it than Drew because he's still out there with it, and I don't mean to jump in there. And I used to. My wife would say, Charlene would say, I'd go to your parent meetings, and it would, you get a little bit stronger each year as far as, I may paraphrase here a little bit, but sometimes the message I would try to say is I appreciate all your little Johnny stories. I appreciate, the thing is, and I know Drew's heard it, and there's several others that, at the younger ages, whatever was happening, yes, your son may have been the all-star. It may have been because of physical maturity. It may have been because, he was bigger and stronger and he was the best player on the field. But we're spending 5 to 6 days a week with him now. And, his desire, his work ethic, there's a lot of things going on that may not be the same as it was at 10 or 12. Or as I was talking about my desire, how much it was early on. Not all kids keep that. And one thing that I've said for a long time is undefeated at that high school level. 2 things, and that's girls and cars. But gas fumes and perfume. There's a couple of things undefeated, and when you're up against that, and also the encouragement. And again, like he's saying, we care about those players and nobody goes out there, or we never went out there and said, we want to put somebody out there because of a personal preference. We want to put the best team out there. We want the best product on the field. We want to try to give you the best. And so in doing that, it's tough sometimes. And I've said, hey, if you're only out here for somebody else, I'll help you have that discussion with that parent. But, the thing is, hey, we want you to love it. And we want the parents to understand, look, make sure your son or daughter enjoys and wants to do it, and they're not just trying to please you.
Sure.
So they've got to keep wanting it. And
so it's better. So are you saying it's better for you as a coach, better for the team, better for all the members, if one day little Johnny's not little anymore and he's doing well, but there's an inkling that he might want to do something else. So really having a non-judgmental path to help that happen, if that needs to happen, that's the best thing, right?
Yeah. The thing is, we want, if there's talent there and even knowing the times, and I know Drew's done the same thing, that you've gone to a player and I think of going to the mound and saying, I want to be here the day you realize how good you can be.
Wow. That's big.
And so, if it's not going to happen, or if, and you still, hey, I'll take what I've got right here because you're good.
Right.
But you've not reached your potential, and I don't know that it's going to happen. And that's regretful, but again, you want to get it, and you're doing everything you can to motivate and get that out of a player, but also, whatever is holding that back, or whatever, and if the desire is not there, it's hard, and that can be the difference in guys making it next level, doing all kinds of things.
Did you have a lot of those conversations?
Several. I would say, more than, and it's tough too that, part of it too is, hey, these are some of the best years.
Right.
When the high school level, there are a lot of times that even with all, there's not as many people. There's a lot of people that can tell you how to do it. There's a lot of people that have, but as far as spending the time you do for the little amount of financial reward you get for it at the high school level, there's not that, the woods are not full of those people that spend, Drew talking about 14 years, that's longevity in doing that for what you've got to love it. And so the appreciation for that hopefully is out there, but it's, it's for the purist, for the ones that really love the game, they recognize and they can see that. But that's another thing we're trying to bring to the next level too.
Right,
so.
Right, with your team. Yeah. Drew, you've been doing this long enough as well to where have you seen this game make a difference in kids' lives? Have you seen people go from, being a bit timid to being being a star, in that realm,
Sure.
in their stardom.
Right. Yeah. So definitely, we pride ourselves in our high school program at West Wilkes of being a little more disciplined than some, and that's not really for anything other than preparing them for life after.
What does that mean because that word means a lot of things.
Right. So, we tuck our shirts in everywhere we go. We take our hats off in the building. We wear our uniform pants a certain way. A lot of things that the casual observer, that's kind of neat that they do those things. But when you really get right down to it, it's a discipline that, it's like making your bed in the morning or
wake up, make your bed.
And so,
yeah.
And one of the biggest things I heard, I had a student graduated, a few years ago now and went into the military, and we've had several that have been able to go into the military, and but he was one of those guys that bucked everything in the high school program. If he could untuck his shirt the moment he could, it was out. Hair policy, he was a little bit long all the time.
Was he doing it on purpose? Was that just his nature?
It was just his nature.
Right.
Just kind of a little bit of a rebel. And but he went into the military, and he called me one day from overseas in Kuwait, I think, of all places. And he said, I just wanted to thank you for that level of discipline. And I say that with tremendous respect for the armed forces, and my level of discipline in the program is nowhere close to that.
Right.
So I do want that definitely spelled out. But he said at the time, I didn't understand how important it was to do the little things and to buy into, even when I didn't necessarily like it or didn't necessarily agree with it. And that's really been our goal. I look at my kids, I've got 2 young kids, and I want them to be able to look up to my players now like I did Dad's players.
Right.
And in order to do that, they've got to understand that burden too a little bit. But also mind their P's and Q's and do what they need to do.
So they have a sense of pride, right? And a sense of pride in just being.
Right.
So I think he may have called you because that training, that insistence of doing these things a certain way, the seeds were there, the ideas were there, and then they just shook him a little bit more. Right. And it's like, I know what to do. I've heard that many times before.
Yeah. Well, and that's something
that's nice.
In athletics in general, and there's other fields too. I'm just familiar with athletics. Your ability to deal with life and your ability to deal with being married, having kids, having a job, having a boss, being a boss, those type of things, when you're put in those positions early on, when you have a safety net, when you can fail a little bit and not have life-altering consequences.
Right. And the people around you aren't going to jump on you just because you made a mistake.
Sure.
It's like, come on, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Hearing him talk that way now, your dad, you're a coach, he's a coach. You're a father, he's a father. But hearing him say these words, seeing him walk through his life the way he's walking now, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means the world. I know that, he was growing up around educators with my wife and I, and he really didn't mention going into education until I'm going to say his senior year. I'm going to say it got, it was probably in that time. And we were like, hey, here's, honor student with, kinds of opportunity, whatever direction you want to go. And knowing though, and knowing and said, hey, you know, it's not, it's not a financial move.
Right.
But also, in hearing since, with him saying things about what he had seen, about the impact and about some of the things I'm hearing him echo, which feels good because I saw that too. It's been awesome to see because so much time, and I can go back through things and all the lessons. There were times when it didn't matter what was the day's lesson in a classroom or on the ball field or anything else. If you were teaching something and you saw the light bulb going on in a group, you're going to keep going if you're doing what you ought to be doing.
Right.
And then that didn't matter who walked in or who, because if you can defend the reason that you're teaching, the reason that you're coaching, then I'd sit down with anybody and defend that.
Were there moments for you during your teaching career, coaching career that you had to step aside for a second and have a talk with yourself about, I need a little encouragement here, or was it always great?
No, there's plenty of times when I looked at whoever beside me. There were times when I'd be in the dugout and I would say, remind me why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so, I mean, there were times like that. And I think too about, the long days and short nights and the lack of support sometimes, even within your own, your own building or sure. But, and then teaching though, and talking about respect and saying, ended up spending a little bit of time in school administration and then returning to the ball field in a project that was one of the toughest, but it was, but thinking about, just little strides. I mean, coming in behind one of the best teams I ever had, and the next year it started out in, really tough. But then when you did some things or you saw the progress through the season, and by the end of the season, you're really playing and being competitive and you can see the growth. But things about respect and practice makes, and becoming an advocate of practice making permanent. Right. Helping people understand that, look. Not perfect, but permanent. Yeah, because if you're doing it wrong and if you're learning it wrong, you just get real good at doing it wrong. Right. Right. And so, it's a retraining if you do that or if you allow it, and so it's not always easy to correct wrong behavior or wrong technique, but you've got to be, you got to be trying to do that if you want to be good or if you want to be better. So how do you feel when you hear him talk about this and his journey, and he's your father, now it's generational, you're doing this. So are you seeing commonalities? Because you said you were a senior when you're like, maybe I want to do this too, Dad. And you've done it, obviously. So now you're sitting here, and I'm sure you guys talk a lot with each other. You've got a common business interest now. You're doing a lot of things together, and you come from the same industry now, right, of teaching. But just hearing him talk and he shares how he feels. I mean, do you feel like you're in a special position to have this the generational business of teaching? I have a thought on the money side, though, that while it may not have been about the money for you, but if you empower with knowledge hundreds of students who then do go on to do other things and make good decisions because of your instruction, that's a whole nother way to look at it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as far as I was a student under him in the classroom a couple times, and was played for him at the high school level, and that light bulb might have been made public about senior year, but I vividly remember when I felt that this was something I wanted to do in the middle of my junior year.
What was it what was the thing that sparked that in you?
So it was a very tough situation. I had, one of my really, really good friends since preschool actually committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And I remember being in a prayer circle with him leading when he really, teachers aren't supposed to pray, teachers, all these things, and just understanding that the words coming out of his mouth meant a lot to a lot of people, not just me. They always meant something to me, whether you knew it or not. But that kind of started that vein into teaching, and then the coaching, piece just kind of followed. I remember a couple of times he had to get into me as an athlete, and I wasn't doing upholding his standards for me. He never was easy on me, but he also was fair, and so those things led to kind of, hey, we need more of this. And maybe I can help do that. And it's been really neat to be able to coach my 9, soon to be 10-year-old a little bit and kind of feel what you must have felt with me on the field.
So it's a good team then.
Yeah, for sure.
So really a good team.
I'm definitely blessed to have been given the parents I was given and the experiences I was given and the opportunities that I've been given.
Wow. So that's your life as father and son and teacher and coach and coach. and now you it's not new. It's not a new thing for you to be involved with the baseball team in Wilkes. Tim asked me earlier. He said, "Well, is it a professional team? Is it an amateur team? What is it?" I said, "It's a very special team," and they're going to tell us all about it because I think that's good for everyone to understand what the Moonshiners are. What is that team? But before we pick up right now, let's go back to the beginning of when that team started, because you were involved from the beginning, right?
I was, fairly close. And so last fall, I guess we started hearing a few things, and my understanding is it was in the works a little bit before that. We actually had a chance probably 10 or 12 years ago that I sat down with a couple people and wanted to bring wood bat baseball to Wilkes, and that opportunity kind of died out, and I didn't think another thing about it.
So you just told everybody what it is. Now tell us what that is, what you're talking about. What is?
Yeah, so it's we're a member of the Old North State League, which is a summer wood bat collegiate league. So you have to be either signed to play college baseball, a current member of a college team, or a post-grad right out of college that may be looking to be draft eligible.
Okay.
So those are, I've heard that question myself, right. Is it X, Y, or Z? And ultimately it's, in my opinion, a much bigger deal than a lot of people understand, not just because I'm involved, but because of what it can bring to Wilkes County and economic impacts, but also just getting people to a ballpark. Everybody has a baseball story.
Sure.
And so we're hopefully helping create some more of those.
So is it the wood bat, right? So that's part of it. So I assume that it is a wood bat, and that's what's used. But the players, so if I understand right of who they are, the collegiate level, is this an important step for them also?
It definitely can be. Yeah. And really in some of our literature that we put out, we talk about the potential for chasing a professional career in baseball, but also just getting extra reps in order to go back to the campus in the fall and having gameplay experience. We have a lot of young guys that maybe are freshmen and sophomores that are going to have bright futures, and some of them have already realized that to a certain extent, but their college coaches would like for them to get more innings on the mound or more at bats or things like that. And so
keeping their game sharp.
Absolutely.
Right. So they've got an edge on the guys that don't do that.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and they're playing against it's collegiate competition, and for the ones that have just come out and they're just getting ready to go play at the college level for the first time, then they're getting a chance to step up to that level right away.
Okay, and see what that's like.
Yeah, and typically the teams are in areas that don't have a big market minor league team or a major league team close by, so that it is something that you've got an opportunity to go a short distance and see a quality ball game.
Right.
Grassroots, though, that still have a love for the game and playing at that level, but it also helps younger players see what it takes to be playing at the next level. So you see what it takes to be a collegiate player, the kind of commitment. Some of these guys are coming from several states away. Some of them are nearby as well. But
so at the very least, it's powerful practice and keeping in tune with movement. And on the upside, they could get recognized.
Certainly.
And
Right.
we actually,
And
we
really-
had, sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. We had, I think, 2 guys drafted out of the league last year, and that's
Okay.
typically or out of our actual division of the league. And then
What does that mean for their career?
so they become professional athletes
Okay.
when they're drafted or they sign professional contracts. So they'll go into minor league baseball typically, and then work their way up and see if they can crack the big leagues at some point.
Yeah.
Or
So is it like the movies? Is it do the talent scouts go around to these small programs like this and see who's there?
we have had several scouts there. One particular, we actually faced a pitcher that was coming off of an injury that we were came to Wilkes and threw against us, and there were 6 or 8 college guys there looking to sign him at the Division I level, so the highest level of college baseball. But then several professional scouts there as well, and they've got their guns up and
Right.
their radar guns up and checking on everything and making phone calls, and it's kind of a circus behind the backstop.
Is there that moment? Is there that moment when you start seeing, they're checking the speed, they're on the phone? I mean,
Well,
when
buzz among the players too.
when the buzz is there, for sure.
okay, so it's obvious what's going on when that's happening.
Yes.
Are all the players excited about that?
Oh yes, because
Yeah.
they get a chance to ride those coattails a little bit too.
Oh,
And
sure.
if they put on a show, if somebody comes in and gets 2 hits off of the the potential D1 guy, then their prospects get better too.
I can't help but to imagine there's an excitement with the crowd also knowing that that's going on. I mean, did you see any of that last year? In the excitement of the crowd, that were there those moments of where someone knew what was happening?
Yeah, and I think, and part of it is you're going to have, like we were talking about earlier, the ones that know the game. Some fans won't recognize it at first, and then what ends up happening is somebody will see it, and then you'll see a whisper, and you'll see and so,
Right.
because it's kind of, you also don't want to give away the fact that, because you can't be awestruck with especially if it's the opposition. Now, if they're there watching your guy, then everybody's puffing up a little bit because,
Right.
but you also have to be careful about that. And that's what he's going to do in the dugout, because as the head coach and now as, the baseball ops guy, all that, it's, you've got to be careful that you keep your guys in check too, that, hey, you got to still play the game, and you start feeling good about yourself, all of a sudden you're going to get rocked too, so you're going to be
sure.
you around the ballpark. But it is, it's an exciting level. We hope to bring, even more to that excitement than was the inaugural year, the first year.
Well, that's exciting. Let's talk about that first year and how it was first organized, right? And then we'll get into why you guys are sitting here now as ownership.
Cool.
Let's talk about that. How did so the name is?
The Wilkes County Moonshiners.
So the Wilkes County Moonshiners, that's the name. And they had their first season last year, right?
And it was just Wilkes County baseball when it was organized. The group, the ownership group, 3 guys, I think, initially. And it was league owned because the majority owner was the family that owns the whole league. The Oklahoma State League. Now, part of their model is to do that, to start some of the teams or to offer what's called a tag. So they offer the opportunity for somebody to have a team in a certain area.
Right.
And some of those teams they start, some of them they sell the tag or they sell the opportunity to join the league. Now, right now, there's 24 teams, which is they filled up. We're full in North Carolina, 4 6-team divisions. So there's 6 teams in our mountain division.
Okay.
And there's a coastal division, tidal division, and
Is it Piedmont?
Piedmont division, I guess.
That's correct.
So that was the case early on. Sometime during the season, majority owner sold to the other two guys, and one of those became majority owner. But that was the league pulling out and not becoming. So they were
letting it become independent.
Yeah, well, or at least So it was. Well, by season's end, the majority owner was in St. Louis, and the other owner was in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So when the season ended, those two owners were not in North Carolina, so that
somebody's phone rang.
Well, it was
somebody's calling somebody.
roughly 12 weeks ago.
Okay.
I had done a little bit of business. The league is set up where certain things with all teams come through the league. Uniforms, caps, baseballs, certain things. They have certain things that everybody buys through the league. And that's an income stream that, and the way it's set up, and they do a good job of making sure it's quality stuff. And, and so, you really can't fault them in that, but that keeps them also in a good spot. But there had been a little bit of merchandise early last year, and some fans got, there were a few shirts and a few things around, but there wasn't enough to really get on through the season. And so I was coming to a lot of games, and I have a promotional specialties business that does team gear and things. And so I was hearing people say, well, I wish I had me a Moonshiners shirt.
Right.
Well, and I told the general manager and told the coach that, hey, I can do that if you can get permission for me to do it. And so they worked on it a little bit and then came back. And this was before the ownership change, actually. And so the league and that majority owner, said, yes, fine, go ahead and get it done.
Okay.
And so it's got to have league.
Sure, it's got to look right.
Logo on it, and it's got to have everything. So we went ahead and did that and got some stuff in, and then it ended up in the time of trying to get invoice paid, I ended up in touch with the majority owner, and so when he was contacting me, the question ended up coming back to me if there might be some interest in buying the team.
So he said that, and at the moment he said that, were you driving or what were you doing?
No, I was at home on a Saturday morning. And,
all right. How long did it take you to respond?
Of course, it was something I expected.
Oh, you did?
No. I thought the call was concerning the invoice.
Right.
Quite honestly, and so I've said a few times that if we had been, face to face, body language might have spoken before my voice, but because I didn't, it wasn't an expected question. But I certainly was able to answer fairly quickly that yes, I would be interested in hearing what you had to say and seeing what you can show me. And so this conversation started, and we started, receiving information, and then from that information, I'm also going to work. Well, let me not get ahead of myself. As soon as I get off the phone, I speak to my wife.
I was getting ready to say this.
And then I make a phone call. Can you imagine who I call?
Your banker.
Just for the record. So I call.
Okay.
I don't want to disclose too much on that end right now because, in case. But anyway, I do. I called Drew, and
I answered the phone, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Well, not right now." He said, "Do you want to be?"
Maybe. What you got? Yeah. So it was.
But immediate excitement at the opportunity,
right?
Even just the consideration.
So what did he say to you? Did he just?
Just asked, kind of presented what he just did to you, and just said, "Are we crazy for entertaining it?"
And you said immediately,
not crazy, but I'm pretty close. Said, if you called me to be the one to talk you out of this, you called the wrong person.
Okay.
And I said,
okay,
the excitement I had for a local owner, for one, and this is no hit at all on the previous owners.
Yeah, of course.
But being local was something we needed, and using the talents and resources that Wilkes County has to offer and the surrounding counties have to offer was something we didn't do super well last year.
Right.
And part of that, we were in a rush and we were trying to get things rolling.
Everybody's trying to figure it out, right?
Absolutely.
And what they did, your phone would have never rang of saying, do you want to buy, unless it was there to be sold, right? So
Sure.
that's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
So,
and to their credit, Drew was their first hire. Okay, when they came into the area.
good
and-
judgment.
Yeah, well, I mean, seriously, I think, I don't, as far as coming in and asking, and from what they told me, they kept hearing, look, if you're looking for a coach, you need to talk to this guy, make sure you talk to this guy. And so they were hearing that from more than one place. And that's a credit to the job he's done here and the consistency and those things. So that felt good, obviously. And, and there are times, we've had this conversation, but there are times when he became the head coach at his alma mater 2 years out of college. Now, that was unusual, but I would say his maturity level and his experience and all in and around the game set him up for that.
Since he's been in training since he was 8.
But I also I stayed out of the process completely, and I don't need to say that, but I will. I knew the athletic director and the principal, and I never made a call, never did, because to me he's a big boy. He's a man. He's and it's his.
Did you wonder if he did? Did you wonder? Did that call?
No, and part of that would go back to my playing days when I knew I wasn't going to get a whole lot of slack, and I also knew by that point I knew that there were some other people that that might have been pushing his hand a little bit to not be so tough, but to give credit where credit was due.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on those opportunities, I would have made the same decisions that he did with my own. And so, but all that to say, he taught me early on, even that first year as a JV coach, before I got the head job, I asked him what some things would be. And one of the top items was be your own self, be your own person, stand by what you believe, and that'll get you where you need to go.
So that's your philosophy. Your philosophy is that also the messaging that goes out to your team, all of your people that are playing for you. Is that the message for each one of them? To obviously they got to be a great team, but also being the best they can be.
Absolutely. And you, self-improvement and going out and putting in the extra work and the way that the game has changed and athletics has changed a little bit, some for the good, some for the bad. I missed the backyard days when that was okay, when not everything was structured.
Right.
And I see that as when I'm dealing with talent at the high school level, what are they missing? Well, they're missing some toughness in some areas. Well, they might not have gone out and climbed a tree and fallen down, scraped their knee, came in and went right back out. Or they might not be able to, put bat to ball because it's always been in a competitive environment. But some of those things. And so, putting in that work to get you to that point, but then also realizing where you fit as a teammate and what the team overall needs. And that's actually a conversation.
Right.
Yeah. That's a conversation I've had with him is I'm willing to do whatever you need me to do with this Moonshiners group. And, obviously want to coach and want to do whatever you want me to do, but you've also got to tell me where I fit best and where I can benefit you and when to stay in my lane. And we've had a couple of those conversations too.
Well, there is a road, right? And there are multiple lanes. So talking about those multiple lanes, I think this is the big story, if you will. And that is, this isn't just a phone call that you got and a phone call that you received, but you talk to your wife, you talk to the other. I mean, this is a whole family gig now, right? All of you are in it.
Well, I can't say enough about, my wife, and we won't go too far into the weeds here. We've been married 33 years coming up here in April. And Drew's a little bit older than that.
And I was getting ready to say, how old are you?
A little bit older than that. So I won't take the show too far out of it, but there's an X factor in there. But
I think we understand the couple options.
Yeah, but
it's okay.
She's been she's been solid for him for a long time, and she was the right person for both of us. But she has been so supportive. I mean, when I took that job up the mountain, I took a job at the Ashe County Career Center, which had all three of the small Ashe County schools feeding in. They were starting to build the Ashe County High School around the Career Center. And I said that I probably hadn't come off the mountain from that interview with the vocational director and things till there probably had already been a phone call. And then I received a call from Beaver Creek High School asking if I'd be willing to consider the job as the baseball coach there. And because in the interview, there were some questions about it, and I said, I've seen a few games. I sort of played it down. I didn't want it tied to my contract. In those days, you could have 2 sports that your principal's choosing tied to your contract.
Right.
And I was driving a fairly long distance. And I had coached my first year in education. I coached, helped with football, did middle school age basketball, and then did baseball. So I did 3 sports. And now you've about got to get you've got to get some kind of special permission to even coach. So anyway, Charlene was very supportive of there was never a home game for her because she would bring him and come up the mountain to a home game at Beaver Creek. So that was not home. We weren't living right there.
Right.
And then they chased us everywhere. And those guys on that team, he was close to them. And what's been amazing, he's coached against some of those, he's got a chance to be on the diamond with those guys coaching in the other dugout, guys that he watched play and seeing them at state games and also going to state games. Now he had a chance to play state games. He's had a chance to coach state games, win a gold medal as a coach at state games when he watched, I'm going to say Andy Cheek, for instance, back in 1995, be on a state games gold medal team. Andy's son now is coming out of that. He's going to be playing for the Moonshiners this year. Wow. And so there's some really neat things going on there. But Charlene's going to be, my wife's going to be a director in our organization, a director of merchandising and fan gear, and his wife's going to be director of food and beverage. And so, yes, their involvement there. And I'll even say that, he said one of the phone calls where, or one of the times that, we've had to give a little space. We got a little amped up over something, and phone call ended, and call came back in, and I looked. We were in the car. I said, "You can get it if you want to. I'm not." And so my wife picked the phone up, and they talked for a little bit, and
keep peace in the family.
Well, but we. The good thing there is, yes, the trust is there that I know that I can turn it over and let him have it. But back when he first got into coaching, he sent me a message and he said, "Give me a list of things, what I need. What would you advise a young coach, and ask for that."
Right. And you did it.
Yeah. And one thing too, when he was a junior in high school, I'd gone back to school and I was burning the candle at however many ends you can burn one on, and so was running the roads, and he knew I wasn't coming to practice as a, lively, energetic.
You knew he was tired?
So he normally would not say anything. And I guess it was one evening after practice or whatever, he said, "Dad, you're not having any fun." He said, "You're going to have to, and he woke me up and that was one, he never really felt like he had to do that very often, but he woke me up.
You glad he did it?
Sure. Because the next day we came in and I think we did the county fair. I mean, we came in and we set up stations all around, and we played. I mean, we were still trying to get better, but we played games that were, productive games, and tried to throw a little fun back into it, and it woke me up.
And you felt better too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess that's the thing. I mean, you're father's son, you're coach, you're owners now, but you're humans, right?
Sure.
So we all have those moments that I think especially being an ownership group now, and that responsibility there. But with your players, it's different because they're older than the ones that you've coached, but they're just a little older. They're not that much older. So I'm guessing that human interaction, direction, and mentorship, which is absolutely what this is, right?
Right. Yeah.
Does that ever stop? Does it ever quit?
I don't think so. I, like I said, played for him, and I go back to him as a coach still often, and other people that I've coached with. Hopefully, and I think what our hope as a whole is for us to demonstrate what Christ looks like, for one. I mean, that's big, high on our list, but also what a good spouse, a good worker, a good father, things like that to these guys. And one thing I really enjoyed last year was getting these players. This is going to sound bad, and it's also going to sound like I've taken cracks at parents. I've had tremendous parents at West Wilkes High School, and no question about it, and continue to. And I make mistakes as a parent, for sure. But having those players kind of by themselves, where I'm treating them as a man to a man, not worrying about some of the other stuff floating around, has allowed for a lot of really good life conversations, and a lot of, the ability to push some buttons that you might not be able to otherwise. And I've got a tremendous coaching staff coming back to the Moonshiners that actually coached two of them, Corey Lackey and Isaac McGuire, and then Seth Kyle, who was a North Wilkes graduate, knew him for a long time, and he's coming over and going to help us at West Wilkes as well.
Is that your full coaching team?
That's the coaching staff,
okay.
And they've done a tremendous job. I can't say enough about those guys and the efforts they've put in, and they're younger than I am by a stretch, and so there are some things sometimes that we relate very well together, but some things that they can take to that age group.
So what do they think about the new ownership?
They're pretty excited, I think.
Are they?
And late in the year last year, I asked them if they were interested in coming back before any of this had happened, and kind of humbling on my end, but it was, Coach, if you're coming back, we're back. Mm-hmm. If you're not back, we'll find something else, to do. And so put a little pressure on me.
I can't help but to imagine, though, with having, I think, the idea of the family doing this together and doing it in the community, I can't help but to think that that's a real big benefit to draw fans as well, because everybody knows that everybody here understands the community, cares about the community. Yes, you've got a place down at the coast, but this is still home, right? Yeah. So, and the people know you.
Well, and that's one thing. I'll let you finish it up, but one thing I do want people to realize, and I'm fighting to make sure that they do, is that the connections are there, but it's also its own entity in that, I'm a West Wilkes baseball coach and teacher right now.
Right.
And as soon as that calendar changes, I'm a Wilkes County Moonshiner coach.
Right.
And so the opportunities are there for everybody. The opportunities are not going to be slanted toward one or the other.
Sure.
And it's a lot of the same that we deal with youth baseball and travel organizations and stuff. Just making sure that we're going to separate things enough to make sure we've got a quality product. But that's also against the backdrop of being tremendously connected to Wilkes County and to our past. And we're proud of that. And not going to apologize for being proud of that.
No, seems like it's the family business, right?
Well, it is the reunions. I mean, I've had a lot of guys. I mean, there were some that I tried to reach out to and just say, hey guys, we got some news coming and we're excited about it. And so look for a lot of reunions, think about the different ball fields and different memories. And and really looked for that and excited about that. But like he says, it's a separate thing, but it's a new ownership. We look to be, we really want to be just woven into the fabric of the community, long-term, generational. We're not looking to be, well, let's get in there and let's do it a year and see what it looks like. No, we're going to be here.
You already know what it looks like, right?
Yeah. It's and even thinking back on some of the stuff that I just in recent conversation, I know my dad had a longtime buddy who stayed in touch with his family, his children, adult children that played for the Flashers, a guy named Joe Rudisell. And then in talking to Drew's wife, realized she had a great uncle that played for the Flashers, the old Wilkes Flashers, Avery Watson, I believe was his name. And so, the historian part of all that is, I can't get enough of the...
Makes it all the richer, doesn't it?
I love old equipment. We may put old gloves on those guys one night for at least an inning and send them out there. And
see what the look on their face is like.
That's right. We'll see if they can handle it. But it is... it's an excitement. We have some people we've already put in place, but we'll say that Natasha Evans is our coordinator of host families and hospitality. So we are looking for more host families, and then we're looking for groups that will help us. We've got to feed both teams after every game.
Right.
We've got 24 home games scheduled. So
and that's how many players? How many's in the team? The whole team.
Well, you count on having 70 between two teams because
got to feed them all.
40-man roster, but you're looking at about 32 to 35, and then leaving a little room for late pitchers and late things that you might have to do during the season. But
and they're probably going to be hungry after a game.
Oh, team to we're getting cheese crackers and depending on which team it is. No, we'll try to
depends on who plays.
Yeah, depends on how our guys play. But we're already upgrading the transportation a little bit and different things.
So you'll be doing all sorts of things to improve things and just keep things going and probably implement a few new things along the way too. Yeah. Tell us how people can learn more about the team, their website, social media. How do they find out more?
Well, WilkesCountyMoonshiners.com.
Okay.
Just written out, WilkesCountyMoonshiners.com. There's information there now, and it's being added to over this next couple of weeks. It'll really be filled out even more. Ticket prices will be up there in the next couple of days, probably by Monday at the latest, and probably be available for purchase by February 1, if not before.
And how? So let's talk about this real quick. So tickets, all the information will be on the website, and the season starts and ends when?
First game, and it's at home is the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend.
Okay, Memorial Day weekend.
May 24th.
Okay.
And we actually play May 24th and 31st at home, first two Saturdays, I believe, and regular season games go through July 19th.
That's correct.
And that's 24 home games.
And a 40-game season overall.
A 40-game season overall. So there's a lot of opportunities to be supportive. Right?
Just 40. Right now. Why you want to add two?
Well, I know we got 18 on the road.
Two for good measure.
Yes, we'll play those in parking lot.
Yeah, there you go. So the opportunities are abundant as far as people being involved, right? So not only by tickets, but sponsors, all sorts of ways for people to be involved. And I really wanted to take this time and thank both of you for spending an hour with us to hear your story, because I think that's important. I think it's important for people to know what the team is, who the team owners are, and that background, and who the players are going to be, because that's exciting. Because it seems to me like from the conversation we've had that you're pretty much assured some excitement when you come to a game, because everybody's going to be trying their hardest, right?
Right, and those guys are coming in for the summer, and they're moving into the area, or they're traveling in every day, and so we want to be able to show them the best of Northwest North Carolina Carolina and Wilkes County in general.
Are they going to be wearing their cap or something around town so people will know to be nice to them?
That's the plan.
Is that the idea?
Well, and we're gonna have another side to that, a service works, Moonshiner Service Works.
What's that?
Well, our nonprofit side that we are going to be doing some things in the community to make sure that we are
Participating.
that you're going to see us out and about, and
With some of the team players?
yeah, sure. And we'll be
Okay.
doing appearances and things, but also coming out and doing some things and partnering with some folks, and I'll say such as Hope Ministries and things
Sure.
like that, but with others that we will. Be partnering with, trying to help those organizations, but also help others, including our youth and things too.
Right.
And trying to do some coaches clinics and things of that nature. Our youth clinics will have some on site, but we may go out and just help people enjoy the game. That'll be part of that, and we may be an advocate for building the wall. But that wall will be one that you put up that's about 8 feet by 12 wide maybe, and that's just a ball that a wall that you can just bounce a ball off of.
Bounce a ball.
If you don't have a partner, find you a good brick wall or block wall.
Back to the roots.
And back to the roots. We'll get you a glove and we'll get you a ball, and let's get a kid throwing a ball and catching a ball, and just if he doesn't have a partner, let's get him throwing a ball against something.
Maybe that's good therapy for everybody.
Hey,
If you got a stressful day and you're mad at your whatevers, then come over to the field and get a ball and throw it against the wall.
when it hits that ball, you got to figure out how to catch it coming back.
Yeah.
You run it down. So
Yeah. Maybe that's good medicine there.
Yeah.
That's it.
But we appreciate you.
Thank you, coaches.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you being in. This show will go out soon, and then we'll have you back in after the season starts, and we'll do a little promo before it actually opens up, and help hopefully push some ticket sales, and maybe you got some surprises you can share with us. I know there are things going to be happening, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Things always happen.
There's some merch for you too.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, guys. This is great. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.